The richest people on the planet are probably very happy people. Oftentimes, maybe they're not. That's because having more does not necessarily give true meaning to your life. Beauty and love and happiness are far more valuable than having just a lot of stuff. Hello everybody, I'm Roger Simpson, clinical hypnotist at the Flow Center in Dallas. You can reach us at theflowcenter.com or at hypnosisoverthephone.com or at my private number 214-699-6627. Last time we talked about quantity versus quality. I related a story or two about how some musicians approach playing their instruments like they were running a race. The faster you play, the better musician you are, they think. Well, I still stand in awe as a player at the other musicians whose fingers can burn and burn playing those licks on those records that they learned. I found early on, however, that my ear-hand coordination was just not that good. And that shortcoming bummed me out early on in dedicating a lot of time on trying to get really fast and smooth on my scales and arpeggios and chords and riffs. In hours-long daily practice, I just didn't get better fast enough to be rewarded with noticeable improvement. Besides, I wanted to play, not practice. The only people that get paid to practice are medical doctors. I made up for it by getting real good at improvising and composing songs and tunes in all styles and combination of players. I was working with a band leader at the time of that story I told you about Carlos, the guitar player, and Tommy, the sax player. Let's call that band leader Stan. I was relating what had happened that night to Stan, which had been the night before, while we were at one of our regular gigs in a little second-floor nightclub on Broadway Avenue in South Phoenix. Now, I asked rhetorically how anyone could have the guts to play a solo right after Tommy had just played a solo like a cyborg from the 27th century. In other words, how can you feel like you have anything left to say on your instrument or in your heart when the performer before you has already said everything that can be said, musically speaking? Well, Stan scratched his goatee and surprised me with an answer. He said, "Roger, after all of those musical athletes, you just wait a couple of bars and let the music go by. Then you play one long, sweet note. Then you play a couple of little notes to connect to another long, sweet note. And you squeeze every bit of beauty out of each one of those long, sweet notes as much as you possibly can. And I guarantee you, the crowd, your audience, will be moved to tears, always." Now, Stan was one of the handful of very wise men that have changed my life with just a sentence or two. In this case, he changed me from fretting that I was never and probably would never be good enough in that more is better world. He replaced that concept with strive for tone, strive for beauty, strive for your own way of saying things, strive for quality, strive for uptown funk. Playing with passion will always be remembered. And this change stayed with me in all I do all my life. Creating something beautiful became one of the points of my life, rather than comparing how I was doing to someone else. In other words, I changed from striving to be better than anyone else on the planet at what I did to being just as unique, important, and precious as anyone else on the planet. And reframing one's life in this way, or not, does have life and death consequences. You see, later on in my life, I played a solo saxophone gig at a major hotel in Hawaii. It was a cocktail party before a main ballroom event where patrons from the convention that were staying at the resort were entering the hall on 2 separate floors. I was on the lower floor main door just playing what they call pop standard melodies as the people came in, embellishing a little here and there, and another sax player, let's call him Chemo, who I played with occasionally at other events, well, he was playing the upstairs door, just solo. Now I could hear Chemo playing as the island breeze wafted the sound downstairs, like in the distance. Chemo was one of those warp drive, 100 notes a second kind of players with lots of imagination. And frankly, I would forget to play the next note of my song because I'd get carried away with such awe at his intricacies and how he made it sound so easy, and complexity of his embellishments of the melodies he was playing. I felt like a third grader who loved the idea of dinosaurs, listening to a paleontologist undergrad lecturing on the fine points of the mating habits of the pygmy Tyrannosaurus. Then the man who was writing us our checks came out to me and asked me to come inside the hall to continue playing the event and sent Chemo home. I was dumbfounded. The other player was clearly warp drive better in my own estimation, yet the guy in charge of the event chose me and my stick to the melody and play some sweet notes type of playing. Jeez. A couple of months later, when I didn't see Chemo at one of the other gigs we would play together normally at, I was informed that he had hung himself in his bedroom, his practice room, by the ceiling fixture, and his parents were the ones that found him. I'm not saying that the hotel gig had anything to do with his demise. Listen, it's all about the way you frame the world, and this may be a matter of your life and death. And of course, the quality and enjoyment of your gift of life. Every human being on this planet is important, is unique and precious. They're an individual expression of the infinite with a capital I. And you are just as important, just as unique, and just as precious as anyone else on this planet. And you need to know this in your heart, to live this deep down in your innermost mind. And this is one of the most important things to your innermost mind that we cover in our sessions at the Flow Center in Dallas. You can reach us at theflowcenter.com or at hypnosisorthephone.com, or you can call us at 214-699-6627. Listen, you are just as important, unique, and precious as anyone else on this planet. And I will see you next time.